Today's segment, we are going to continue with creating a login and registration form, and also understanding the concept of how to create a database in XAMPP. So more or less how the database can then work hand in hand with the login and the registration also as well. This simply means that when we go ahead and then log in, we want that login credentials to just aggregate in, or more or less to then fetch the data in the database. And when we also register, we want the registration also to then store in the database. The whole concept is we understanding how a database work in hand, how we can create a database in XAMPP, and also how MySQL work in hand so far as PHP is concerned, better understanding the front end and the back end. Take it down from the way, if you could see some couple of code on the screen, you realize that we created that was our previous lesson. We dealt with how to create the login credentials in terms of connecting a PHP to the database. So the whole concept, we are going to connect the whole thing to a database called what? Database.php. So that is the whole concept, and this means that we are going to create a database in the XAMPP. Then we can go ahead and connect this to the database that is being created. Having understand that, I like us to go ahead and then launch our XAMPP control panel. So on my desktop, I'll just go ahead and then launch my XAMPP. So as you can see my XAMPP now, what I'll go ahead to do is that I'm going to go ahead and then create my login, so far as what my login credentials is concerned. So to create my login, what I will do is that I'll go ahead and start my Apache and start my SQL. So after starting my XAMPP, and so far as my Apache and my SQL is concerned, I'll go ahead and go to my admin. So when I go to my admin, for instance, this is it here. As you can see here, this is my admin. So simply put, when I go to login that registration, as you can see here, you can see that this is my registration. As we can all see here, this is my registration form, where when I click on register, it will display the register portal for us to just go ahead and then fill in the credentials that we want. Now, having said that, I'd like us to then focus on what? Creating the registration button, so far as what logging in is concerned. Now, when you watch very carefully, when you click on the login, for instance, we then talk about you enter your email and then your password, and you click on what? Sign in, or sign in. That will take you to the login portal. And when you click on the registration, for instance, the registration will then go ahead and then request a full name, email, and then what? The password. That we need to confirm the password also at the same time. Then all that will go to the registration portal. Now, having said that, what I like us to equally do is that now we are going to then focus and then create a database. Okay, we are going to create a database for the login, in terms of how the login to then connect to our database. So first, I'll go to click on a new tab and go to my localhost. And when I come to my localhost, this is my localhost dashboard. I'll click on what we have, phpMyAdmin, which is taking some couple of time, so let's wait for it. So this is my php.admin. So I'm going to create a database in the php MySQL folder. So for us to create a database, I'll click on what we have, new. So in the new, I'll go ahead and then create a database and name the database user_system. So that is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to call it let's say user, so user_system, or use_system. That is how I want to call it. Then I'll go ahead and click on create. So you can see here, this is my database, as you can see. So after I've created my database, the next I'm going to do is I'm going to then go ahead and create a table in the database called user. So I'll go ahead and then click on what we have, SQL. So when I click on the SQL, I'll go ahead and then we'll write my database. So in the SQL, I'm going to create a table in the SQL. So I'll go ahead and say create. So create table, and the name of the table is users. Users, open parenthesis, close parenthesis. In between the parentheses, I'll press enter, and the first request is going to be ID, and I'll make it I'll make it index. Then I'll do it auto, that the number should be displaying automatic, that is auto. Then I'll make that a primary key nicely, so that becomes that will become my primary key. Okay, then after that I'll go ahead and then bring my next field known as full name, full_name. Then I'll call it varchar. Varchar, as I just said, the same as what? Text. Varchar is the same as text. So, and then I'll make the full name, the full size of the full name. You can make it 50 or 100. So let me just make it 50, or let me make it 100. Sorry, so 100, and I'll make it not now. Then the next thing is going to be email. So email also is going to be varchar. Also the field size, and make it 100 because we have some emails that are very long, and I also make it not now. Unicorn. Okay, supposed to be QUE. Okay, so after I'm done, the next I'm going to request is password. So password, and also is going to be varchar, and password can be long, like make it 255 as the default, 255, and I'll do that also not now. Press enter, close my parentheses, and bring my current bracket. So after I'm done, the next I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead and then click on go, and then my table will be created. So let's wait for that. You can see my table is created successfully. So you can see here, this is my table created successfully here. So when I click on my table here, as you can see my table here, users, and you can see that I have some couple of ID, full name, employee, email, and then password. So my table is created successfully. So now after my table is created successfully, what I must do is that I must go ahead and then link the database that I created to the form. Remember that the database name I use for the form is called what users. And when you watch my PHP, for instance, so in my PHP here, you can see that when you watch here, for instance, I said the form should call users. So which means that when I entered my email and password, and if the email and password are entered and is successful, then it should come and call the users, and that users form contain the email. And again, I wrote an if statement that, and if the password are entered, are you getting it, matches the password that I used to register, then it should echo login successful, welcome. And if the first name also match, then if it does not match, you say incorrect password. But if it does not match at all, so far as the email is concerned, you should say what, no user found with this email. So basically that is the name. You can see that the form, we call the form what users. That is why in the table, the database table here, we created a table known as users in the form. Okay, now taking that from the way, we need to go ahead and then connect the database to the user form. To do that, we'll go to the text editor, and then let's go to the HTML element which we have here. So in our HTML, you can see that in the form tab here, we gave an ID known as what, login underscore form, and we went ahead by saying that the class is what is form. In addition to that, you can see that we said you should go ahead and then what, call the what, the altar is login.php. Okay, fine. Now the mode is now known as what, known as is pointing to the POS, which is the point port. But the funny thing is that we also want the login in such a way that we want to give it a class, and that class we want to give it also to known as what, hidden form. Okay, that is what we did that for the registration. But as we did that for the registration form, by we saying that that particular form should be known as hidden, you can see here, that's what we did here. Okay, so now as we've done that, we remember that we want both forms should be hidden. Okay, so the class for both forms should be hidden, which that when we go ahead and then instead I give it a class as form, so we can also go ahead and call it hidden. So in as matter, when we click on it, it should hide, it should switch from the registration onto the what, the login. When we click on registration, it should switch from login onto registration. So in here, so I'll go ahead and call that also hidden. That is another correction that I would like us to do, hidden. Okay, now we've taken that from the, when we click on file here and click on save here, now when we go ahead and then alter that in the registration form, then our connection must be successful. Other than that, then you should say that what incorrect, like incorrect password. Then you should say no user found with this email. Okay, so as we've done this, we need to go ahead and then create a database, where in that database we need to connect our database password and also what, database name to the database that we created. How shall I get in it? So therefore the question here is, how can we do that? Okay, how can we do that? Now we've created our database, we need to now link the database onto the what, the connect both the HTML so far our PHP is concerned onto our database. To do that, we need to go ahead and create another, how do you call it, connection, so that configuration. We can call it database configuration.php, or we can also call it what, dashboard.php. Anyhow we want to call it, we are good to go. So for us to do just that, what we must do is that we must go ahead and then here where we have dashboard.php, okay, that is database.php, you can see is here, that is a database.php. We'll go ahead and then come to click on file and then click on new. Now when you click on file and click on new, okay, we'll click on file here and click on save as. So in the save as here, we are going to call this as let's call it db. Okay, so let's call this db.php. You can also call it configuration or database, okay, .php, any which way you want to call it. But when you watch here, we call it database.php. So let me just do that, call it sorry about that, let me call it database.php. So file, save as, and then I'll call it database.php. click on save. Now after I've done that, I need to write some PHP code for the configuration. So I'll go ahead and write that code. So host, and the host is equal to localhost. The host is equal to localhost. Then I'll say user, so the user also user. The user is called to root, that's the default. The username is root, that's the default that we give to the database. Then the password for the database. So the password for the database later on I'll check and then let you guys see it. There we have the database name, which I'll check for you guys to see also. Then now we need to go ahead with our connection. My new MySQL. So new MySQL so dash before my database should connect must have the connection must then respond to my host, then my user, also respond to my password, then my database. So when all this thing is correct, then it should then connect to the database. Okay, so having done that, now I need to write some if statement that if indeed the connection I couldn't provide the username, the password, and the database name, then it should echo error. So I need to write some if statement here. Then I'll say if, okay, if the connection underscore error. Okay, then I'll say here, so if my connection so that should, if my connection, so I'll explain this code for you guys to better understand why it is like this. Okay, so let me better explain now. The whole thing is that when if, okay, as you can all see, so if my connection, for instance, okay, when my username so far the root is concerned, and also my password, and then the database is not matching what is on my database, then you should just read an error. Okay, you should then read an error. Okay, so I'll go ahead and click on file and click on save. Now, how can we do this connection? Now, for us to do this connection, what we must do is that we must then go ahead and then go to, so in our exam, for example, we created a database. The name of the database is what is user, okay, users underscore what system. That is the name of the database. So I will copy that and come to my text editor where I have database. So I'm going to connect that. So you see, so that is my database name. Now, what is my password? So for me to know the password, what I must do is that I must come to where we have my XAMPP folder in my HT docs, so far my project folder is concerned, and go to my XAMPP folder. So when I come to my XAMPP folder here, scroll down here, you can see where we have phpMyAdmin. Double click on that to be open. In the phpMyAdmin, scroll down and come to where we have config.inc. Drag that and open that in your text editor. So I'm dragging it and dropping it on my text editor. So after dropping it on my text editor, you can see here, this is my username, and this is my password. So I'll copy that, and I come to my database here, and you can see password, and I'll provide a password. So far as the XAMPP password is concerned, I click on file and click on save. Okay, now having done that, I'll go back to my index and check my index.html and check the connections that yes indeed I have my login, and in the login consists of what the database form, that when everything is successful. So if everything is determined login successful, if then you tell me what welcome if registration form meets the requirements. Okay, so having said this, now let's look at something. Let's log in and see whether it will tell us what incorrect password or no what user found with this email. Let's look at that, or with that email. Let's look at that. So when I come to my registration form and refresh, okay, and now everything is nice. When I click on this, you see it's hidden. So when I refresh, everything will go hidden, okay, because I made it hidden. So when it was, I made, let me show you something. My index, I made the login form also hidden. But when I take the hidden also out, for instance, and click on file and click on save, and now come to my browser and refresh, you can see that now the login is showing. Okay, so let's test it and see whether it will tell us incorrect what email found. So I'll go ahead and let me use something like this and type a password randomly and click on login. So you can see here, you see that it's telling me here now it's working. You see that no user found. I can see no what, as you can see here, okay, no user found with that email. So that means that our database connection is working perfectly. Okay, so now because we've not registered yet, so we need to create a registration form where when we enter, we register whoever we are registering, or the login register, or whoever that is registering, that person's information will then display here. Will come in and display in the database. So now when we go back to our login form and then login, is going to see, is going to what the if statement is going to scan to see that whatever we have entered here, okay, meets the registration. If it is yes, then it will tell us what login successful. Now, having gotten the whole concept, let's look at how to put that off. So I'll go to my text editor. In my text editor, the next thing I must do is I must create a registration form. Okay, you can see that what we created first was the login. Okay, now we need to create the registration form index. We need to create a registration form where it will permit us to register, okay, the whoever that we are creating the login for. So you can see that the form is divided into two, where we created the first one for login and the second one for what, registration. So for us to create a registration, you can see we name it registration.php. That is the name we want to use to create the form. So for us to create our form, what I'd like you guys to do is that go ahead and then click on file. When you click on file, click on new and click on file again and click on save as. Now when you click on save as in the same folder, I'd like you to then create a registration form. Okay, so type registration.php. okay, so that is what we wanted to create, registration.php. So as I've typed registration.php, the next I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and then log in into my registration, create that file known as registration.php. I'm not logging in, I'm creating that file known as registration.php. Click on save. So I'm done. So now after I've then go ahead and click on my registration.php, what I must do again is I must go ahead and then we'll create my registration form.php. So that is what I must do. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and then write my first code of line. So far as writing my PHP is concerned, so I'll go ahead and say PHP, that in between. Now when you watch here in my how do you call it, click on file and click on save. When you watch here in my login.php, you can see that I made include to connect to the database. So I must do the same thing. So I'll copy this and come to my registration.php and paste that nicely. So I'm going to run my if statement. So far as you see here, also I wrote some of my if statement so far the port is concerned. So let's go. Then I'll say if and I'll bring my bracket and request then I'll say that should be equal to my port. Okay, so in that I want to the fields, I'll bring my fields. So the fields is going to be my full name, if my full name is equal to the connect which that was written in the my database. Okay, that will be string. Then that should call the ports. That should call the port, and that should be for first or full name. Sorry, that should be for full name. Okay, so if I enter my full name being required, okay, and it is connected to the database successfully. Okay, now there is something I like to do so far as the prerequisite is concerned. So I said when I enter my database and is then required, okay, let's change this one to require here. Okay, so I'm okay with this. I don't want to require it falsely, so which is string with space in between them. Okay, so I want to then go ahead and say request email also, which is also equal to connection in my database. in my database, and that should also be space string, and that should then go ahead and then respond to the port, and if it responds to the port, and that should be my email. Okay, that should be my email. Okay, now let's go ahead with the password. Okay, so next we're looking at is our password, which is going to be underscore. So the password should be kind of like hidden, so it should be in hash for us. It shouldn't be displaying, so that will be in hash nicely, and that should be pointed to my port, and that should be password, and that should also be password encode. Okay, so password and dash should then go in for password. Password underscore my badge. Okay, my badge. Okay, done. Okay, so after I'm done, now the next thing is that now I need to then fill in my SQL input. So what my SQL input is all about. So far as what my user request is concerned and my user form is concerned. So now I need to come and connect that, and then what I'll say is that I'll call my SQL. So my SQL, which is equal to the input requirements. So input. So when I enter all this, when I enter the user, the first name, the email, and the password, and then I click on submit, all that should be inputted into my database. Okay, that's the meaning of that. So I have to use the input statement by saying that input, insert statement. So I'll use the insert statement. So I'll say insert into. Okay, so insert into. So the name of the table is called what? Users. So that's the name of the table, and it consists of some couple of fields. So I need to bring those fields. So the fields are full name, comma, email, comma, password, okay. Then after that I'll say value. Okay, so like the way we use, how do you call it, our access, so far SQL is the same thing. So values, so values, then I'll say open parenthesis. So my values, for instance, is going to be my full name, which is whatever I have entered here. Okay, this full name. Okay, so that's my values. Okay, so this full name, I'll paste it here, then my comma, then after the full name I said what? My email, which is this. So after calling the fields, so the moment I fill this automatically, is going to represent all what I've field here, so far the declaring variables, so far the if statement is concerned, in here, and that to be sent into my my database. So email, and I'll go ahead and then bring my next field. Remember, is what is a password, so it's going to be comma here, and then my password, and I'll close bracket, which is my parentheses, because this is open parentheses. Then I'll go ahead and then I'm done with that. Okay, so now having explained that, as I just said, that when I go ahead and then enter all this information in the form, okay, the SQL should then alter or insert into the table. You should insert it into the table, and the table consists of this couple of fields, and that fields should then contain the values that I'll be entering here. So that's the meaning of what we just did. Okay, now as I'm done, the next I'm going to do is that now the whole thing is going to be connected to the registration form and say echo successfully. So I need to go ahead and then say, okay, if, okay, so I'll say if the connection, of course, the connection query in the SQL is successful, like all what I entered in the SQL, if it is successful, then I'd like it to echo, okay, it should echo registration successful, kind of. So registration successful. So anchor reference to href, reference to my index.html, reference to my index.html to my login button. So which means that when I click on the login button, that should alter, okay, to my login. Hash. Then close my closing bracket of my anchor. Then we are done. Else, so let's write the else statement. So else, if in case whatever I entered I omitted and there's an error, it should echo error. Okay, so we should go by saying else. So else, then it should echo error. Should echo error so far the connection is concerned. So I'll click on file and click on save. File and click on save. Nicely. So after taking that from the way, there is some couple of connections that we must do, which we've already done in our database. So now we are done with our connections. Now let's connect to this project and register and see whether whatever we have registered will it going to then record into our database. So this is my form now. So I'll click on the register button. So we are testing it. So I'll say my name is Prince, and I'm called Prince Armstrong, and my password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and let me go by saying register. Okay, so remember that I said my name, so here is requesting email, and I've typed my name. So let me just say my name is Prince Armstrong, my full name, of course, if I the spaces are concerned. Okay, what is it? Okay, so here my email, let's use something like admin@armstrong.com kind of. So let me go ahead and click on register. So you can see here, so it said registration successful. You see it here, registration successful. Okay, now when I come here now and refresh, so you can see that information has automatically gone to towards this, where we have full name here, and I have my username and password. Okay, so the database is successful. But when you watch very carefully, you can see that when I click on this, it says that registration on line 4. There is a mistake, because what is that mistake? You can see that as indeed I entered my name here, okay, my name here did not display here. My name here did not display. My name could have displayed, but it speak only, how do you call it, the username, but my name did not display. Okay, let's look at that. So when I come to my text editor, okay, so on line 4, let's try this. Okay, so let's full name, okay, let me do this way by saying just name is got to connect here, and here value, so we have full name here, so the value here, let me make the value here also known as just name. Okay, so just name as a value, but the data type is full name. After that, let's click on file, click on save. Let's come to the browser and let me refresh that. So registration form on line 4, so error, so go back. Okay, let me come back to my database and delete that from the database, and let me register again, and Prince Armstrong, of course, email, let's use this, and password, let's go by saying password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, register. Correct. Okay, so I'm successful now. So now when you come back and refresh, okay, you can see that my name will display in the table. You will see here my name is displaying Prince Armstrong. Now, so I may ask, I said, what was the problem? For my troubleshooting, I realized that you can see that I'm using in my registration table. What I did was that I used something we call a value, which is I assign variables. I said full name, okay, full underscore name. That's what I did. And full underscore name, I came here also and call it full underscore name. Now come think of it, this is equally responding to the same variable, so it's going to bring a conflict. So for me to change this, I'm assigning a variable to full name as a full name. Okay, fine, but it's going to be conflict. So as it's going to conflict, might to just change the name to just what, change it to name, okay, and come and call it the value also name, that anything that is being entered, it is known as name, but it is represented as what, full name. And that is what I did, and the connection was successful. Remember we said that when we enter all this and it's successful, you should read what, registration successful. And when you come to the browser, you can see registration. So when you click on hit, it will take you to login. Okay, now, so now as the registration is successful, now you can see it here in the registration. Okay, so now let me just go ahead and then log in, our browser refresh, and now come to our database. You realize that this is our email. So when we come here and now we say this email, and we go ahead by saying that the password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and we click on login, it's going to now ring successful. So login successful. So basically, as you can see that now, but when we go and then delete that from the back end, which is from the database, okay, and then we go ahead to our registration form, for instance, and then this is the credential login. It's going to tell us what invalid login because it is deleted from the database. Okay, so when we go ahead and then do the registration again by registering, let's say Prince Armstrong, and we use this email password, let's say is 1 2 3 4 5. This one's also 1 2 3 4 5, and then we log in we register, for instance. You can see it's a registration successful. I should go ahead and click on login. When I click on the login button to bring me here, and when I click on user, it's going to go ahead and display that 6 Prince Armstrong and my password here. Okay, so when I go ahead and then log in with that email password 1 2 3 4 5 and login, is going to say login successful. So basically that is just that.
Armstrong computers, we're leading the way, bringing ICT to your doorstep every day. Where vision meets excellence, we stand strong, transforming students where they belong. In the halls of knowledge, we light the spark.